Our cheap Porsche 911 has a huge problem, and this time it might not be worth fixing.
We bought this Porsche 911 earlier this year from a scrapyard for about a quarter of what these cars are usually worth.
It was badly burnt inside and needed a lot of new wiring to get it running again. After all that, we had spent another £5,000 getting the car back on the road with a few modifications on top.
The series was coming to a close and we were gearing up to take it on track for the final episode. But the day before the shoot, there was an issue.
The car's gearbox started to make a horrible noise, and with other projects taking over, the 911 sat abandoned with no idea to what extent it was broken and no plan to fix it.
So today, we're going to try and figure out what is actually wrong with this car.
Eventually ends up grinding itself to bits in the bottom of the gearbox.
How much it'll cost to fix.
It's £16,853.10.
And decide what we should do with it.
It's not good.
Hope's gone.
There's only one conclusion we could really come to, and that's...
Right, so something is wrong with this car, and the fact that it only happens in 3rd and 6th gear probably tells us that it's going to be in the gearbox. The engine, it would be doing it all the time, and if it was clutch related, it would be doing when it changed the clutch, but it is only when it's on gear in 3rd and off the throttle in 6th. So that kind of points towards bearings and gear sets inside the gearbox, the things that turn and actually send the power to the wheels.
And there's nothing actually obviously wrong. There's no holes in the gearbox with oil pouring out.
No.
There's nothing pouring out of where you would fill it or where you drain the oil. It all looks like it should work, but that's the problem with gearboxes. If you can't see the problem, it means you're gonna need to take it apart.
A quick Google said that these gearboxes don't like when you leave their oil too long, and to be honest, we never did change the gearbox oil in this. So the first thing I did was I dropped the oil from the gearbox to see if I could see anything in it, and I filled it back up with fluids. And the old gearbox oil is over here.
So you can actually tell a lot about oil, whether that's engine oil or gearbox oil. First thing is the color. This is very black. If it was looking golden, we'd know that's been done regularly, it's been done recently. It really hasn't. Also, the consistency of it as well. You could drink that nicely and you would never know any different. Don't do that. But it's really watery and it should be a little bit thicker than that. That's meant to be lubricating metal and gears and what such. And if stuff gets really bad, you might have some bits of metal in your gearbox, and that is when metal on metal, there's no lubrication, it's just rubbing away. This doesn't look too bad. There are some bits in it, which means it hasn't obliterated itself completely, but I don't think we can tell too much from this oil, really. It's not a good sign, but there's nothing conclusive here.
There's nothing in this oil that tells us for sure that this gearbox is done for. So I threw some new gearbox fluid in it yesterday, filled it up, haven't driven it yet, because I don't want to do it without Will here. So let's see if it's fixed it.
So what gear is it you had a noise in before?
3rd when you're accelerating, and 6th when you stop accelerating.
Let's see.
1st is fine.
2nd is all good.
Oh no.
Might be difficult for you to hear that. Sounds like someone's rattling a box of Cocoa Pops back there.
Oh, it sounds so bad.
That's just not a nice noise.
So 6th is fine, and if I let off, it didn't fix 6th.
More expensive noises. So we now have a 4-speed 996.
It's an early one.
This is now like a 60s or a 70s.
That's what I mean, yeah. Like they all have 4 speeds.
So your 1st, 2nd, 4th, 5th.
That's it.
Now, before we go any further with the 911, this is a quick reminder that if you're buying a used car, you should always run a car vertical check.
Every single day, hundreds of cars get crashed, and some of them get put back on the road, a bit like our Porsche 911. But some of them have their dodgy histories hidden to try and up the price. With a car vertical report, you can find out that shady past.
All you have to do is enter your reg number or your VIN, and a car vertical report will tell you if that car has been crashed, stolen or clocked.
The Porsche 911 in its old life was written off, and you can see on the car vertical report, while it does have green ticks for odometer and finance, it has a yellow marker for damage. When you scroll down, it tells us it was a Cat N write-off, which is why we got it so cheap.
This Range Rover Evoque is an example of a much worse written off car because we've got yellow marks for finance and damage. And if we scroll down, there are photos of the damage. So it's had a front end smash and the side has been completely caved in as well. And if you scroll down, it'll tell you that this vehicle was marked as scrap. It is illegal to put that car back on the road. But with a car vertical report, you can find out this car's shady past.
So if you're ever buying a car, van or motorbike, or a really dodgy Porsche 911 with fire damage, make sure that you're on a Car Vertical check to make sure that the price you pay for it matches its history.
And as an added bonus, Car Vertical are offering you guys 20% off when you use code TDC.
Now knowing that there was clearly a much deeper issue inside the gearbox, I headed down to a local friend and Porsche expert, Northway Porsche, to speak to resident gearbox expert Paul, who I was hoping would be able to diagnose the issue.
So what do you reckon is wrong inside our 996 gearbox?
I mean, the most common things with 996 gearboxes is the main bearing in the bottom of the shaft. That normally starts off with a noise first of all, and then eventually ends up grinding itself to bits in the bottom of the gearbox.
And would you hear that through all gears?
You would hear that through all gears. However, yours was in 2 gears.
Yeah, 3rd and 6th.
Obviously, we haven't stripped it down from what you were describing and what we felt when we drove the car, that the bearings on the actual gear sets themselves are broken up.
Okay, there's a 996 gearbox down here. If they don't lock up tightly at night, I'll be here to take that. So this is a 964 gearbox getting a similar kind of job done, being torn apart. It's not particularly simple. If Will or I try and do this, we're gonna mess it up. Yeah, it's actually the first thing you said to me is do not take it apart yourself because it'll never go back together.
Yeah,
right.
That's it. With a 996 gearbox, you need a high pressure press to take the gears on and off the shaft.
We're not gonna have one of those, are we?
No, that's it. But yeah, there's the bearing that sits inside. So each gear, say for instance, like that one there is 4th gear out of this gearbox. Each gear has 2 gears. So you have a fixed gear and a rolling loose gear. And that is the bearing that sits inside the loose gear. And obviously I think with yours that is then disintegrated itself.
What sort of thing causes those bearings to degrade?
Lack of oil contamination. So i.e. if it's been sat for a long period of time, if you've got moisture in there.
No, it doesn't sound like our car. Ours has been going pretty often. Yeah, no, we never changed the box fluid after it had been off the road for years. So it's on us fully. If it, let's say it only needed those bearings on 3rd and 6th, what sort of time does it take you to, if it was a 996 gearbox, take it apart?
I mean, the gearbox itself taking in and out of the car is not too bad, as long as nothing breaks when it's coming out. Casings and what have you, to strip them down, it's probably about a day and a half's work by the time you've got it all apart, stripped, measured, and then going back together again.
You've been doing these for years and years.
Yeah.
That's your fast time. To someone who, let's say, is a novice, let's say, I don't know, they've never touched the internals of a gearbox before. Don't know who that would be referencing. How long would you reckon?
Just don't do it.
Perfect. Yeah. Time to ring around and see what options we've got.
With a specialist now having confirmed that there was a serious issue with the 996's gearbox, we knew it was going to have to be removed from the car. But we'd need to decide exactly what to do to resolve the issue once it was out.
So we'll call up Porsche and ask them what they want for a brand new gearbox.
It's going to be a lot, but it's an old car.
Yeah.
It might have a couple laying around.
Surely there was some that you didn't sell.
You never know.
Thank you for calling Porsche Centre Reading.
Hi there, I just wanted to get a price request on some parts if possible, please.
Yeah, what are you after?
It should be a 6-speed manual transmission with the factory LSD.
What I'll do, let me pop you on hold quickly.
Yep.
And I should be able to get it sorted. 2 seconds.
No worries, thanks.
Also, that gearbox is even rarer because it has a diff in it, a limited slip diff.
An LSD version, a limited slip differential gearbox, is really rare to find in these early cars. They're really sought after and people pay a lot of money for them, I've heard. Hopefully we don't have to spend a lot of money.
Yeah, so that one's available in Germany. So it'll take about 5 to 6 working days to come in, including VAT. £16,853.10. With the item being what it is, a gearbox, we offer it on a surcharge basis. If you were to return your old one to us, we could offer you a kind of a credit of £3,737.45. All you pay for in the end would be £9,378.20.
With handing in the old gearbox, it would be just a little over £9,000.
Yeah, just £9,378.20.
Perfect, that's great, thank you very much.
That's fine then. Talk to you soon then.
Cheers, bye.
10 grand.
10 grand before Porsche touch it. If Porsche touch it, I'm gonna guess at least a day or 2 of time. So you're probably looking at 11 or 12,000 pounds.
That's more than that car's had spent on it.
Double what we paid for the car itself. So the next option is we ring up some specialists and ask them what they would charge to rebuild the gearbox that's in there.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we did, and once we'd called pretty much every specialist we could think of, the verdict was quite bleak.
We've made some calls to some specialists about parts, rebuild parts, how much that's going to cost. It's better.
Yeah, it is better.
But it's still in the thousands.
It's still far too much. Basically, most people we've talked to have said it's anywhere from £4,000 to £7,000 or £8,000. And the reason there's such a big range is that they don't know what needs replacing until the gearbox comes apart. So we thought, surely the things inside can't be that expensive. They are. The gear sets, like the gears themselves, first, second, third, fourth. So first gear is £420. Second gear, £658. Third, £358. Fourth, £232. Fifth gear, £366. Sixth gear, £318. And reverse, £596. Now that's worst case if all of the gear sets were gone. But the bit that gets really bad, that's not even all of the parts it needs. It needs bearings within each of those gear sets. Each one of those are about £200. So on top of that £2,900, we probably have to spend another £1,500 to £2,000, plus their labour to take it apart, replace them all and put it back together, and you start getting up towards that £7,000 or £8,000 number.
With someone doing it, that is definitely the cheaper route. Because if the other one, you spent 9 grand on the gearbox plus that one, and you had it fitted by Porsche, I don't know, let's call it 13 grand or whatever. This is cheaper by almost 5 grand, but that's still a lot of money.
Still a lot of money.
So the next option is to buy a used gearbox.
Yeah.
Now there are some pitfalls with that. You might buy a bad one. You could buy a used gearbox and then that fails, but this could be a way cheaper route. And we have someone for that. We have Steve. Every single time we had a problem or needed a part, we called him and he'd be like, yeah, I got one of those.
Come on down, mate.
Or he knows someone who's got one of those,
Yeah.
or where to get one of those. There's one in the hedge somewhere in Reading. Yeah. If it's Porsche, if it's 996, he knows it.
Steve is our man.
He's the man for this, I think. So we headed over to see Steve and find out if we'd be able to get a used gearbox from the 911. But first, we stopped by to visit an old friend.
This car at Steve's is actually the car that gave its life for ours. See those little wires there? This little guy chopped his loom out, stuck him in our car. Not fully successful, you'll hear about that in a bit, but cool to see. Gave its life for ours.
So, as we mentioned before, this is Steve from SW Race Car Hire. Again, we have called him countless times for this 996. Yeah. Have you got this part? Have you got this part? How do we do this? How do we fix that? He has come up trumps every single time. And now we've got a bigger issue.
Gearbox needs to come apart. The price from Porsche, about £13,000. The price from a specialist, anywhere from 4 to 8, they think, depending on how much needs doing.
Yeah, okay.
So we've come to you to work out how much would a used gearbox set us back.
About 2 grand, depending on mileage, but the problem is getting hold of them. I've been searching for a decent one for a year for my track car.
A year?
Yeah. I mean, bearing in mind, I don't like paying a lot of money, so.
Neither do we.
But they are out there, but usually about 2 grand. That's for a used one, straight out the car, no LSD, nothing.
Yeah. Right, because our car came with a standard factory fit limited slip diff,
which is
so
rare.
those even harder to find then.
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw one of those with a
LSD
diff for sale?
I can't say I've seen one recently. Not that I can remember, but changing the LSD isn't a big deal. So you can get a standard gearbox, put your diff in for not a great deal more money.
Where do you go about finding them?
eBay's probably the best.
You obviously work on these a lot. What sort of book time, or how long does it take you to pull a gearbox, put it back in?
4 or 5 hours, can put it in and out.
So double it and then maybe triple it for us.
Yeah.
You're going to need a clutch probably as well while you're in there. Do your up and over brake pipe.
There's lots of while you're in there stuff.
Unfortunately, yeah.
It's out.
Yeah.
So like 3 grand plus probably in terms of cost if you do it yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you find a box, bring it over and we'll sort something out.
That's why Steve's the best. If you have a Boxster, a 993, a 996, let Steve know. Steve will help you out of a bad situation.
He will.
We're in.
If you see one for sale,
Yep, we'll do. I'll keep an eye
you've
out.
got our number.
Okay.
Text, call us straight away, middle of the night if it comes up, whatever happens. We need to go and figure out
What we do
what
with
to
this car.
do.
Back at the unit, it was time to assess our options and decide what to do with this sad little Porsche.
So we're back from Steve's, and he has given us probably the best option yet.
Yeah, he gave us hope, but hope's gone.
It's not good. It's the cheapest option. It's still very expensive, and also we can't just find one. There are no good gearboxes for sale on eBay. You can't find anything.
No, I looked all over Facebook, found one for sale about a year ago for about 2.5 grand.
We did rebuild this car and get it back on the road, but it still has some problems.
A lot of problems.
It has a lot of problems. It's not the nicest thing to use all the time.
The alarm module under the seat has stopped working some point in Germany, which means we have no locks on the doors, no working windows, no working air con. It randomly just turns on and off and drains the electrics.
And the wiring, even though we paid a good amount of money to get the wiring done, we probably didn't do it in the most efficient way possible, which means there's a lot of stuff that doesn't work. Some of the stuff on the gauge cluster doesn't work. Oil pressure?
No.
Max, all the time. Coolant? No idea.
And then you add into the fact that there is still damage on the exterior, paint that is chipping off everywhere, and it needs a full new interior. That's just a given. It needs that. And then finally, it's got a very weird, you could call it a knock from the engine, that's also very worrying.
So with all of those costs considered, and that's a lot of time and work, there's only one conclusion we could really come to,
and that's that we've sold it.
We're a YouTube channel, we're not a restoration company. We can't spend months and months and months on the same car because you guys will get bored of it. So yeah, we sold it to someone and they're on their way to come and pick it up now.
And actually, that sounds like them now.
Hiya, just come to pick up my new Porsche. So, that's right, I have bought this car. We did actually consider selling it to someone else, but I couldn't really face it. This is the first car we've ever built together on this channel. I wanted to keep it, and I want to do it properly. I want to do all of the work it needs. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to live again. First things first, the gearbox. I'm going to replace it with a used unit. If you know of a cheap gearbox for a 3.4, let me know, I might be interested. The wing that should be here, I shouldn't be able to put my hand through it, that is up on the top over there. Still the reason that it's not fitted, the little brackets that mount it to the side here are 200 euros a side. I didn't want to pay that, so I need to make some. And speaking of that wing, the black on the here and the black here, that's going to be gotten rid of. We'll stick some white on the top there, get it painted nice. The TDC logos on the side, those are going nowhere. Those are going to stay. Same with the wheels. I might get a different set of wheels, but they're going to stay purple. Inside the car, the new loom that we had put in, because of all the issues that we're having with it, I'm going to completely gut the entire interior, and I've bought a used loom off of eBay, and I'm going to re-loom the entire car. Every single wire is going to be pulled out. I'm going to put a new loom in it. The interior, as much as it is ready for a track day, it isn't ready to be used day to day. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull all of that out and replace it with some nice original interior, but maybe we'll re-dye it a nice color, maybe something a bit weird. And once all of that's done, I'm just going to use it. I'll bring it to shows, I'll take it on track days. This car will live as the TDC pig as long as I own it.
And you can see the rest of this car's journey on our new second channel. We'll put that on the screen here, and that'll be more for our personal stuff. And if that's a little bit confusing because you think this already is a personal car, this is a company car, company build. This belongs to TDC, the company, but we have our own builds as well.
Yeah, I've bought this with my own money.
Yeah, so you actually paid money for this.
The joke's on me.
So make sure you check that channel out. There's going to be some cool stuff on there. It'll be a little bit more in depth and a lot more casual.
Yeah, and we think you'll really like it. So click here if you want to subscribe to our main channel. Click here if you want to watch last week's video. See you next week.